Welcome and good evening, y'all. It is that time. It is Monday, and it is time for another great episode of Mason Dixon Podcast with y'all's host, Cousin Vinny. We are going to have a great discussion tonight. Some of my fellow commentators and co-hosts here at our show will be on shortly, but I figured I'd come on here and just kind of give a little Arlington update and kind of reiterate what y'all can do for the cause. So before we get into the program for tonight in our discussion, which will involve teaching, education, and one of the most powerful and at the same time controversial teachers union in the entire nation, the NJEA. As always, y'all remember, the views and opinions expressed here on Mason Dixon Podcast and on MAD are our own and just our own views, and they do not represent the views and opinions of any other person, group, or organization. Remember that if y'all are watching from Facebook, stars help us put up statues. Please send us some stars. We put them to good use. Also, consider becoming a member of Save Southern Heritage Florida and checking out their page. This has been one of the best pro-Confederate history and heritage groups in Florida that has worked to save memorials, educate people about our heritage, and to better the law so that we can set precedents in other states. So they have a great website, a great Facebook page. Please check them out and help them grow because they do so much for our cause and our heritage. And for Arlington, y'all, a quick little update for those that missed our last episode, because I know we kind of started late on that. The good news with Arlington is, the results of the election. By executive order, the incoming president, Trump, can, by executive order, restore Arlington back to Arlington Cemetery. And now this is up to us, the people, to keep on supporting Defend Arlington, sign up for their emails, become aware of what's going on. As of now, that memorial is still owned by the military. There's been a lot of rumors going around saying it's going up at some battlefield here, battlefield there. That is all false. That is all hearsay. The memorial is in a Richmond depot. It's in multiple storage units in multiple boxes as well. That is where the memorial was being held. And, we are now praying, sending emails. I know some people have wrote Youngkin or his administration that, hey, thank you for holding on to the memorial, but we need to hold on to it longer for Trump because he has to put it back by executive order. There was multiple avenues we had. So before he was in office, we had a supermajority in Congress. And the way that works is, Congress, one of them proposed, let's defund the naming commission. Let's put Arlington back. They could have done that. They could have saved it. They chose not to. So big thing I spent all of last year and this year doing was educating people on, y'all's Congress critters, know how they voted, because there was quite a bit of people on the right that sided with the left to destroy Arlington. So that was my own little, 2 cents on there. Do we also have any of our regulars in here, by the way? Say hi, y'all. So I know some of our regulars that come on here, I know personally, and a few of them I was blessed to meet recently. So that is my little update for Arlington. Does anyone have any questions on Arlington that I might be able to answer? I don't know everything, and if I don't know anything, I always defer to email Defend Arlington, and they will hopefully answer your question in 1 to 3 days, roughly. So that is that. And great to see you, Mark Stone. All right, so our topic today is going to be on the NJEA. So it stands for the New Jersey Educators Association or Education Association, and this is the Teachers Union of New Jersey. Now, I have a lot of good friends that are teachers still, and they are barely hanging on. It's a rough field. It's difficult. It's not a field that I personally would enjoy like I used to be involved in education. Now I want nothing to do with it. And that all happened with the start of the mandate and all that nonsense when the unions completely backed down. To put it this way, the unions in New Jersey, they put more of their funds towards politics than it comes to public education. That is why, you'll have teachers that they actually make decent money in New Jersey compared to other states, but a lot of money that can be made gets thrown into the NJEA, and that in turn goes to politics. NJEA will comment on stuff that occurs in other states. Their president is known for being tyrannical. He came after a harmless mother in New Jersey, and I think he called like one of the big government departments on her or something. Just pure pettiness, and all that. Also great to see you, Mr. Joseph and Alistair. So the NJEA yearly, they have a convention, and it used to be, so I remember growing up, we would get all excited because the teachers would be away. We wouldn't have school. We'd have a 4 or 5 day weekend. We'd have a great time. And that's usually when the election was and all that. So it was a great week, and, as it should have been. And the teachers would learn how to be better educators, right? Nothing wrong with that. They would learn about teaching methods. They would learn about, ways to improve teaching and classroom management style, which is critical and sadly lacking these days, and a whole bunch of other stuff. New books that were educational and not propaganda like we have now in libraries. Well, I'm going to share with y'all what was taught at the recent NJEA convention. It was pretty darn awful. So let's take a look at this. So every year there's a theme, and the last, I would say 2-3 years, there's been a theme on the whole, LGBTQ stuff. There's been a whole theme on drag queens, especially in Drag Story Hour. They put an emphasis on drinking. They had a drag show there with 2 drag queens that was at the event. Why do teachers need to know this? What is so important about drag shows that are any way, shape, or form imperative or conductive to a positive learning environment? I myself, as an educator, as well as somebody who is working on a PhD, I have not found anything yet to date to suggest that drag is somehow beneficial to education, somehow conducive to learning, and is positive in any way, shape, or form. That is an adult activity. It is something that, adults do on their own free time because they have that choice to do whatever. It is not something that belongs in the classroom, nor is it something that belongs in the public school system. For those that don't remember, we have an episode where they they had a private drag show during school hours. So when students should have been learning, they got pulled out of class, and they had a drag queen who was in very raunchy clothing perform a show. And this occurred at a high school in New Jersey, and it divided a community. It caused a lot of chaos, and the Board of Education was like, yeah, we hear what's going on here. We hear all this. By the way, we're still suspending sports because of a fraud case that occurred. And it was clearly fraud. They accused somebody being racist without any proof, and they suspended all team sports, but they allowed a drag show at this high school. And we had a whole episode dedicated to that, and that should be on our Southern Media Company YouTube. Colonel John, how are you?
Fantastic. And how about yourself, Vincent?
I am hanging in there, buddy.
Good. And a happy Veterans Day to everyone that's watching. God bless you. If you served honorably in the United States Armed Forces after the war between the states or before the war between the states, God bless you. God bless your memory. And as for the war between the states, God bless the memory of all Confederate veterans.
Yes, sir. We will always remember them and their descendants. So today we're honoring all veterans, and especially I hope one of our regulars, Miss Cheryl Stonewall. I want to give her a personal shout out, and please keep my friend in your prayers. She lost her son, which is her dog. That dog broke my heart. So Miss Cheryl, you are in my ongoing prayers. I really love the support you've given us here at MAD, and we are all here for you in your time of grieving.
God bless you, ma'am.
And Ms. Cheryl served in the armed forces, and also want to shout out to my other buddy John, my one buddy Billy, my other buddy Brandon, who always makes me laugh, and my buddy from North Carolina, Rebel Road Dog. Him and Miss Carolyn, I call them my adopted rebel parents from North Carolina. Road Dog, he can light up a whole room, and him and Miss Carolyn, if us three are together in a room, it is really bad with our jokes and our banter and all that. How are you, Corey?
All right, Corey's joined in.
Yeah, I just got out of the shower, and after a long afternoon of taking my car to the shop and getting the rental.
Bummer.
Yeah. So what's the 411, gentlemen, besides Veterans Day?
Well, the New Jersey, and I figured this is an interesting topic because the New Jersey, of course, making waves for all the wrong reasons as usual. Their teachers union convention was this week, and as some people know, New Jersey is known for having one of the most corrupt and one of the most controversial teachers unions that's around. And they have their workshop, and their workshop. Now, when I grew up, back when the dinosaurs were on Earth, before all
You
the
mean back in John's day?
Yeah, I'm even before that. I was here right after Adam and Eve.
no, she,
I doubt
Oh.
that. You probably are around the time of Moses, most likely.
Yeah, I remember Methuselah. He was pretty old by the time I got here, but I remember Methuselah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Methuselah would have had a heart
I
attack.
recognize this name right here. Chastain Buttigieg.
Oh, the booty giggler?
That's right.
Oh, no.
Or Buttigieg, yeah. Yeah, but it's Pete Buttigieg's husband.
It is. It is. And he was the
Yeah.
keynote speaker at the NJEA's event. So, this is a convention where teachers are supposed to learn how to be better educators. How does talking about what goes on in the bedroom help teachers become better at their job? This is something that I'm like, what on earth is, like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, last I checked, number one, none of your business. Number two, none of this person's business. And number three, refer back to one.
Amen to that.
And on top of that, when I think of Buttigieg, and when I heard Buttigieg and teachers union, then especially union, that's it's a bad combination, because I mean, public sector unions are the bane of this country's existence, and it's definitely, in my personal opinion, anti-constitutional.
I absolutely would concur with that. I mean, just in the election, I mean, you saw unions for government agencies issuing out endorsements for candidates. What a conflict of interest is that?
It is, and most I can agree with private sector unions to a degree, but a public sector unions like teachers, that's pretty much anything to do with public sector unionism is, well, it's legal mafia, as I call it, legalized mafia, where they strong arm you and extort you, and then ultimately you have to raise your price to the point you bankrupt yourself.
That's right. And you think about the conflict of interest, what goes on in New Jersey, and like what people don't understand is the NJEA, their goal is not just New Jersey. Like California, they want to control everything. All sovereign states they want to control and overreach. So when they were having stuff go on in Wisconsin, they were commenting on that trial that was going on 3 years ago, which is like, how the heck does that impact New Jersey education? They were talking about the memorials. They were talking about other current events that had nothing to do with New Jersey, nothing to do with education. And the running thing is that the New Jersey Education Association, I would say in the last 10 years, has become this radical Marxist organization where they're all about teaching, they teach disrespect. They teach students to, go after their parents, to, attack the Bible, attack anything historical or classical, and get rid of the four olds. They are essentially teaching Marxism. So this nonsense that's been going on for ages, I mean, just take a look at some of these workshops. So we have him as a speaker, which is like, how the hell is he a speaker? Disability, equity, theater, and language arts integration. And participants will use theater techniques, including gesture and improv to learn about disabled heroes from diverse backgrounds through the literary arts integrations they will see themselves as heroes too. Okay, well, the idea of like helping out disability, that is admirable, but that there's more to this. They're going to add in that gender thing. They're going to add in things that are not even remotely related, which, there's great books out there that are just that. It's a good story. It's empowering. So My friend's wife, she does books and all that, and she does books that are on that topic. I know another young author in New Jersey. She does books about people that are in wheelchairs and, their experience in dance or things like that, their children's books. Those are all empowering without the political messaging. And let's take a look at some of the other ones they have. Queering the curriculum. That is more than just having a query. Equity and identity. History curriculum mandates. Gay history, but why stop there? Examining how to incorporate these issues into the English classroom and learn why it matters. Are they going to be reading like XX rated material, like the stuff you see in the library? What the heck is that?
You'd think, and
Why?
if you continue down to teaching controversial issues and banned books and drag queen story time.
Yep.
Always with the drag queen story. Let me ask you a question. You've got, just a couple weeks ago, you had them making up a lie about Donald Trump giving a speech, and they claimed, totally false, by the way, if you watch the whole clip, but they claimed that he was making some sort of an oral sex gesture in front of the crowd, which is not at all what he was doing.
Yeah,
They disparage him for this, but they promote this. They
Yes.
promote this perversion in your children's classrooms.
Yeah,
That's right.
And on top of that, they talk about banned books, and books aren't being banned. They're books that are inappropriate that are not age appropriate for kids are being removed from the school library. That's not being banned. I mean,
I've told this to Vinny in private conversation. But when I was a kid, I remember going to the barber shop. Now, this was an old school man's barber shop where I would go and get my hair cut. And they had a magazine shelf. It went in tiers up in height.
yeah,
And as a child, I could reach the kids' books, the highlights magazine, the comic books, a few, maybe some of the sports stuff. But then just out of my reach, you would have maybe swimsuit magazines and stuff like that. And once you got to, the reach of somebody who was an adult or somebody who could at least comprehend it, you would have more of the adult content magazines.
Playboy and whatnot.
Right. They want to put that right at the bottom. They want to put that in the hands of your kindergartners, in the hands of your first and second and third graders, to show them all this perversion. Things that kids don't need to have any idea about at that age is insanity.
Yeah,
That's what they mean by banned books.
Yes, it's circumventing the authority of the parent too, because I don't know if you're a parent, John, or not. Because I know you're not.
No, but I've helped raise three children that were not mine.
Well, it's I'm a loving uncle. I'm the funkle, the fun uncle. But at least I know better than to put that in the hands of my nephews and niece, because I mean, no kid under 12 should be reading that.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Y'all think about what a library is like, and this is how devious it is, because our enemies, those Marxists, what they'll do is they will make a book that is so inappropriate, adult in nature, and they know that children look at the world in two things. They look at the world through colors, through shapes, through vibrant things. So they're now trying to shape their minds while they're young for this ideology. And there was a woman in New Jersey named Judith Reisman, wonderful woman. She passed on a few years ago, but she was a big part of the documentary Mind Polluters, which talked about how the naughty stuff in books, these rated R books, made it in the library, how it was incentivized and how it started around 2009, 2008. And it started in slowly, and it went in slowly, and then overnight it was like a boom. And she
Boom,
spent
it
her
blows in your
entire
face,
life,
yeah.
right? Like, and I remember growing up, our library, we had a wonderful librarian. Now, get this, y'all. Just about every library I'd go to, school-wise, there was always a Miss Sullivan. It was a Miss Sullivan, and she ran that library with an iron fist. There was nothing in that library that was age inappropriate, which also goes into books about, like, right, complex romance, violence, things like that. You don't find that in a children's school library, like, you know, K through 4. Or a children's library. That's just not appropriate. Number one,
Yeah.
you know, no one's going to read chapter books. And number two, the content's not appropriate. So nothing is being banned in that sense. And, you know, you think about, you know, books that might be allowed in college, right? The complexity is there. That's another reason why they don't have those books there. And also the maturity. Certain topics you can't comprehend until you are older. Like, you know, graphic stuff about war. Like, there's some stuff about the war between the states that you would not want to read to your children that we have. Like, we have the books, you know, crimes, Northern Crimes Against Southerners. That is a very adult book. You need to be age where you are mature enough to understand the content of that. So that is not a children's book.
And I wouldn't read my Arkansas book. You remember that book I showed you, Vinny, and that chapter that talks about my hometown, what they did to that poor lady and her niece. I would not read that to my underage nephews and niece, because the details of it is so graphic that it gives me nightmares. Imagine what it would do to a kid's psyche, knowing that someone is capable of that form of depravity to their fellow man, especially from soldier to civilian.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. Usually along the same line, they will try to shock children in the school system now with cases of violence, things like that. And they'll pick the group that is, quote, the vulnerable group. And it will say, you know, if you are this way, shame on you. If you are a Christian, white, straight male, shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. And it's your fault that this happened. And they do all that guilting and this nonsense. And that is how they are using the library system to attack children. And in turn, have children attack their families. And I also liken this to music. Now, we all know an inappropriate song without obviously getting into the weeds or singing out anything bad. That song, WAP. Would you want to play that song over the intercom?
No.
Is that school appropriate?
No.
And it's not banned. There's students that will listen to it and all that. And I remember when I was teaching, it was a barbering course, and we had, you know, my thing, it was adult education. I would always let the students play their iPods or, you know, phone or computer, whatever music they had, they could play it, like hook up their device, put it on there. And so long as it was school appropriate. And they would say, well, what does that mean? And I said, okay, well, number one, is your parents okay with that? And if the answer is yes, I said, your friend's strict Catholic grandma, would she be okay with that? And that was my little litmus test. And the answer was yes, no, they didn't play the music. Well, they tricked everyone into playing that song. And with 2 seconds, I ran over there, yanked it out. I go, this is not school appropriate. So certain things, you know, we've become a society where they normalize saying foul language. They normalize concepts that are grotesque. But then anytime we have something that is pure, good family fun, it somehow considered right-wing, or racist or what have you. And that's been the catchphrase, which I thankfully am seeing that people are tired of hearing it. They're tired of the traditions being attacked. They're tired of this nonsense being put in schools. And they're tired of the left claiming the right is doing X, Y, Z when they're doing the exact same thing they're accusing the left of.
Yeah, they're projecting, of all things, really. What they're accusing us of doing, that's what they're doing.
I think one of the best things that anybody, if you're watching us tonight, I think one of the best things that you can watch is a documentary that's called The War on Children. It was done by a guy named Robbie Starbuck. Robbie used to be in the entertainment industry. He was a music video producer for a lot of the rock and hip hop and rap stars that are still going today, and not too long ago. But he started realizing the effort that was being made to sexualize children and to sexualize the thoughts and minds of children and to target them with this content. And he since has become a born-again Christian. He moved his family out of California to Tennessee, and now he is taking everybody head on about these perverse ideas that are being put out into the minds of the kids via the media, via the stores that we shop in, via the school system and the government. And if you watch that documentary, he talks to educators, people who used to be teachers who have been fired because they would not go along with this perverse ideology. They wouldn't refer to kids by their preferred pronouns. They would not go along with teaching them these, adult content issues that they were being forced to do, and they were fired for it. They talked to parents who tried to help their children to realize that they should not do the gender switching, the transitioning. That's their word for it, transitioning. And this woman had her child taken away from her by the state.
Oh yeah,
because she wouldn't support it.
Yeah, California allows it too. Because
we had a professor that was so radical. She called it. So if the NJEA had it their way, so the rule in New Jersey, and this is the case in most states, by the way, the duty to warn. Anytime if you're an educator, a doctor, a nurse, a psychologist, all that, anytime you have a minor who is anyone under 18 who you are worried about their welfare, you have to make a report to social service. However, or child services. However, if they have it their way, they are wanting to make it so that if a parent tells a child that, you can't transition, that would warrant a removal from the home. And I had one radical professor, I'll never forget this. She claimed that parents that won't let their children transition are guilty of emotional incest. What the heck is that?
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, number one, that is a term that does not exist. Number two, that's just making people uncomfortable. So you think that you're right. And number three, parents have every right to say, no, you are not putting hormones in your body if you don't have a hormone disorder. You are not messing with God's plan for you. And you are not messing with how you are. When you're 18, guess what? You can live under your own roof and you can make that decision. But in my house, there are rules. And that is what we're seeing, is that you have these state governments and sadly federal government that backs them who want to become involved. Like California is notorious for that. California has done that to countless parents where they'll come after them and harass them. And in New Jersey, this is some of the other nonsense. Like you'll see some of the courses like transgender justice in schools where officials are enacting, it says officials are enacting anti-LGBT laws, banning gender-affirming care and LGBT curriculum and censoring books, creating fear in schools. The workshop offers stories and strategies for gay justice and education. And these courses, some of them are PhDs. That is terrifying because when you have a PhD, I mean, speaking from personal experience being in a PhD program, our cohort was wonderful that I was in, but other cohorts, there were members that you're thinking like, how the heck were they in a PhD when they don't have their own ducks in a row, that they are not mentally healthy. They're out of this world insane. There are people with a PhD that are extremely unintelligent and extremely just radicalized. And here is a prime example of them using their degree for evil.
Realistically, at least in the modern culture, having a PhD simply means that you have been through enough indoctrination to be qualified to indoctrinate others. I mean, that's there's a lot of people who you would want to have PhDs, good people, who would never make it through the programs that you have to go through to get a PhD because they simply could not make it through that disgusting indoctrination.
It's so bad.
Yeah, when I was briefly in my grad program, some of the stuff I saw and that they had us reading, even though it wasn't oriented to this, some of the theories or how to read or theories and schools of thought of history that they tried to, well, get us to read upon. And I'm like, what the crap is this? Because you would think if you're studying history, especially if you're going to advance upon it, why not read old works like, and I'm a little biased on this too, because I subscribe mostly to Leopold von Ranke, who was practically the father of historiography, and I subscribe only to that. And while everybody else subscribes to a more Marxist or a more materialist sort of thing. And what Leopold von Ranke espoused is whatever's in the public record is fact.
Without a doubt. And that right there is an example of that's real learning, real teaching. It goes beyond just the standard. It encourages critical thinking. It encourages freedom of thought. I mean, here, this shows you that anytime someone says that there is no CRT, there is no this DEI nonsense, all of this proves otherwise. And this was just one day of their 4-day convention or 3-day convention. Yeah. I think it's 3 days. And right here, it shows exploring the messages we receive about gender and sexuality. In this discussion-based workshop, attendees will explore the messages they've received about gender and sexual orientation from 5 different agents of influence: family, friends, school, media, and religion. So as usual, what they do is what they're using dark psychology, as I call it. It's these assessments that have no validity or reliability that say, oh, wait a minute, are you straight? Oh, no, you have a lot of bias. Are you Christian? You got tons of bias. And then when they go down to other demographics, that person feels like they're this big and they're just shamed. And then it says, okay, well, if you're married to a husband, you have to start calling him your partner, and you have to make everyone do the same, and you got to start having pronouns. And that is what this course does, more or less. That is exactly those the whole nonsense. And when I was doing my residency, we had to do a course like that where every little activity that this professor did was beyond ridiculous. Some of them were borderline raunchy with the discussions that were going on. And this professor, he had no filter whatsoever, and he was a little off-putting. And that was something that I've dealt with in the field. And that was one course that was in person. The rest of them that were online, knock on wood, were not as bad, but you will find that on and off, that stuff will occur. Great to see you, Dr. Sullivan. And Matthew, thank you for your work in the ministry with getting the Drag Queen Story Hour shut down. And that's right, Matthew, there's some pretty sick people out there. That we have a lot of them, sadly, in Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York. Michigan probably has a bit of it, I'm guessing, too. California. Yeah. And what they do is when they do these conventions, a lot of these presenters will spread their ideology. So this is not just, and look at their logo. Okay, it is not even Pride Month. Pride Month, which they claim is June. I call it Christian Heritage Month. That pride flag, which now has the triangle and the circle and all that, the NJEA uses that all the time versus the regular logo or a state flag. So big proponent of NJEA. They want pride flags in the classrooms. They want the BLM flags in the classroom. And these are all the activism work that has been going on because of the NJEA. And anyone who tries to speak up, if there's a teacher that says, hey, you can't have a pride flag in the classroom or this and that, if they speak up, they usually are either terminated if they're not tenured, they find some way to kick them out, or they get fired flat out. I've seen that happen several times, actually. Right here, look at this. Reading builds equity and empathy. Titles to encourage teen readers. And it says an experienced high school librarian will share new, notable, and diverse books along with sample program ideas to get students excited about reading. Can you all just imagine what kind of books that librarian is going to pick out?
Definitely not Oscar Wilde.
Oh, definitely not Gregory Newsom's amazing books.
Yeah.
But this is what's going on. And here's an example, y'all. How many of y'all have been to a bookstore in the last 5 years? in Virginia. Now, this is silly me. I was there with some friends, and we were there for a great event. And, we said, we're going to kill some time before dinner. So me and several of my friends, we walked into the bookstore. I'm thinking they're going to have a lot of great books and maybe some good used books, or because I love like a real bookstore, which is hard to come by. Well, we walk in there and it's all modern, and I'm looking at the wall, and here I'm seeing like all these people, and I'm like, who's that person on the wall? And the lady goes, oh, that's Rosa Parks when she was young. I said, all right. Other person down there. Oh, that's Kamala Harris. They had another person in there. So you can tell what way the bookstore is leaning. You go to look at the titles, and the farther you get back, it's worse and worse and worse. There was not even a single science book that was in there. There was a history book of Richmond. Well, guess what? All the history's been destroyed. There was books about removing memorials, books about attacking our heritage. They had Karen Cox's book in there. And as I get all the way to the back, there was a little curtain. And it was one of those things that, if any of y'all ever went to Blockbuster or the local movie store, because we had two amazing movie stores that were family owned. And there was that little space right toward the back with the curtains, and it had like the red light and a little knob. And it said on the door, only enter if you are 18 or older, like because the adult stuff are there. Well, instead of the adult section, that was a children's section. And let me tell you, these books were so disgusting. There were books about the implicit biases. There were books that were very rated R on the gender stuff. There were books on transitioning. And these were made for children, colorful and all that, so children would think it's something appropriate. That is how children are being groomed by bookstores, by libraries, and by these authors that are absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. And what's scary, Vinny, is that up until COVID, all of this was right under our nose until remote learning came about, and then parents started hearing what is going on in the classroom from their home.
That's right.
Yep.
And I gotta say, it definitely scared the crap out of me, and I'm not a parent. And
it makes you afraid.
But I guarantee
you become a parent.
Yeah.
And these are the same. These are the same schools. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, honestly, it made me want to go. If I ever have children or stepchildren, you're being homeschooled.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of homeschooling. It is something that is occurring a lot more up north, and they have whole homeschooling pods where the students learn together. They do field trips, they do all that, so it's still very much social. I become the biggest proponent of homeschooling after seeing all of this nonsense go on, because you can't even trust it anymore that your children will be safe at school because of the propaganda that's being taught. And that was the common consensus with a lot of the commentators that commented on this post that was shared from their workshops, is that how the heck could this occur? I mean, they were saying homeschooling is the way to go. And you have a lot of people that are just turning a blind eye to this in certain cases.
Well, Vinny, I would say that you probably are the one between the three of us who has spent more time in the classroom over the last 5-10 years. But from my perspective, and even from when I was in school, 15 years ago, it just seems to me like school has become the place where you go to be indoctrinated away from everything that your parents, your church, your family, basically to discredit all of your sources of learning prior to going there, and then to be reformed, remade, have your mind transformed into what they want. Warped, yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it's definitely not the school I remember growing up. And back when I was in school, what we found in our junior high and high school libraries were, well, pretty much whichever popular author it was at the time, whether it was the author of Twilight, Harry Potter, Aragon, and the nonfiction, you had your big name people, that Tyrant Lincoln, Washington, Jefferson, and the whole works. I have never in my years as a student ever ran into an inappropriate book. And
Absolutely. And I love that
and
point
now,
because I remember it was about the author and the fun of reading because, I understand Harry Potter can be controversial, especially if somebody is, Christian, the idea of witchcraft and all that. But you look at like
yeah,
Lemony Snicket's the series of unfortunate events. That was another
Lord of
big
the
one where
Rings.
you would have all these books. And when it was finally time for the last book, everybody was racing to the Borders bookstore or Barnes Noble.
Yeah,
And that was, I truly, Borders, I remember, was a really good bookstore. You had DVDs, you had all that. And it was a great bookstore for learning and all that, buy books, buy
Hastings.
educational stuff. Yep.
Look,
And
I miss
grew
it.
up I grew up in a Christian home, pretty strict parents certainly by today's standards. But if you have a child that you have trained up in the way he should go, brought up in church, and knows what's right and wrong and what's real and what's false, by the time that they're 13, 14, 15 years old, I think they can handle watching a Harry Potter movie or reading a Harry Potter book without turning to witchcraft. But look, the current objective here goes even further beyond that. I mean, they're not just trying to make witchcraft seem like it's fun in the movies. They are literally trying to make actual witchcraft seem appealing to children who are again in the elementary school grades, fourth graders, third graders. It's disgusting and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, do y'all remember the Olympics? I can remember it was the Olympics. There was a chick that was there who proudly and gleefully, I think she was like a performer or something with another dude. She proclaimed herself a queer, and then a screeching voice, and I'm a witch, or some form of musical performance somewhere, and that is scary. Proclaiming yourself publicly in the air that you are a witch,
or even a Satanist. That's another thing too. You'll see is people are proud to be Satanist or satanic, and it's like, oh my gosh, and the moral standards have just degraded and eroded. And I definitely think that was a big factor in people speaking up this year at the polls because people are tired of it. They're tired of, our heritage, which is a heritage of honor and Christianity and all these, beautiful Christian symbols like the battle flag and St. Andrew's cross who've been attacked and all this. They're tired of it because here you have our symbols that are pure, that are Christian, that are wonderful and historical being replaced with satanic symbols. And then, you look at that flag that they have in the NJEA's logo, that triangle is symbolic for very evil groups. And that was something that was talked about at a Christian workshop I did. And look at this one too. Like here's an idea too to mention is that New Jersey, we've had a lot of issues when it comes to our test scores. So I know that's another controversial issue on testing and this and that. However, we have students that they're in high school and they cannot read. They cannot do basic math because they haven't been learning math. They've been too busy reading their equity stuff. Or there was an English teacher, I remember, who at the time I had a family member who took photos of what was handed out in class, and it was BLM handouts. This teacher handed them out instead of actually talking about English and writing and composition, maybe how to write a resume, something that's useful. Nope. Instead, they did all this equity nonsense. And they've been doing all this, and the students have been suffering. So instead, they are more concerned with revealing the outcomes of the 2024 United States Trans Survey and focusing on systemic discrimination. And then that leads into the discipline. So, along these lines, you have this whole idea that, if you have discipline, if you believe in discipline, that all of a sudden you're a colonizer with that whole uncolonized movement. Well, apparently they now think discipline is discrimination. So it says school discipline, discrimination, and the New Jersey law against discrimination, which is virtual. And it says participants will learn about how the New Jersey law against discrimination, LAD, applies to discrimination in student discipline and steps school can take to comply with LAD. In other words, they're trying to teach in that course that if you are of a particular demographic, that you shouldn't be disciplined, or that they should give you more warnings versus other students who should be disciplined instead. And this is the whole nightmare. And the whole idea of that we shouldn't punish anymore, we shouldn't use discipline. Okay, the point of discipline is so that you don't repeat behavior that's bad.
Yeah.
Amen.
I mean, that's why we have, I don't know if any of these schools still do it, but back in my day, we had a 3-strike rule. Warning.
That's right,
Warning.
Matthew.
Yeah. And then you go into either D Hall or ISS. And somewhere in between that, SWATs.
Is it true that in Arkansas that y'all could reduce your, let's say ISS was supposed to be, 4 days, that they would knock it down a day or 2 days if you opted for the SWATs?
Something like that, yeah. At least back in my day it was. Well, back then it was, you had your choice of ISS or SWATs. And most people went for the SWATs. And
that's right. And
I've
if you
probably,
think about it too,
I've
it's
been
any
swatted
religion.
once in my life.
The DEI and anti-racist program is actually the real racist thing because it attacks any religion. And, me being Latino, Latinos have been badly attacked with the nonsense because they'll say, oh, if you're a religion, well, most Latinos are Catholic or Christian of some sort. And that they were actually trying to change our language. So instead of our language being gender specific, because in traditional Latino families, the culture and the language tends to be strongly masculine, and the feminine have a different ending, like Rosa ends in an A and all that. And they were trying to change that by making it gender neutral by using the X, like Latinx. There is no such thing as Latinx. And that was something that, we had to fight back against. But under DEI, they were always Latinx.
Yeah.
Just a quick sidebar here. Zach Belcher. Just a quick sidebar. Zach Belcher, you might be my cousin. Because my family is Belchers. My grandmother was a Belcher. I don't know if you're located in Virginia or Kentucky, but my family's from Southeast Kentucky. It might be my cousin, Zach Belcher.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is that they try this thing called white passing with Latinos, and
that's right.
And also with Asians and whatnot. Oh, and yeah, Zach just answered, John. Yes, from Virginia.
It's a good possibility we're distantly related.
Yes, because your ancestor has that.
We're
last name.
closely related.
That's possible. My ancestors have been in Kentucky since Belcher ancestors since the late 1700s, early 1800s. But yeah, they go back to Virginia.
Yeah, same with my bunch, John. Same with my family, the Bondurants. They're either in the Carolinas or they're in Virginia. Most predominantly North Carolina.
Well, to get things back on track, go ahead.
But yeah, with DEI is definitely attack. It attacks just about anything that is an anathema to their ideas. It predominantly attacks people who are white, Protestant, and conservative, but it's definitely branched out into attacking Latinos who are staunchly conservative and Catholic. Mm-hmm.
Look,
yeah.
the fact of the matter is, we have got to find a way. And look, little kids it's different. They need to be taught better. But when you get into the older ages, we need to bring back shame.
Yes.
We need to bring. I mean, nobody blushes at anything anymore. There's nothing that's too out there, too far, too perverse. I mean, just look at what's on television today. And I think I've said this on this program before, but I remember when just to see a human butt, a male buttocks, was something to be blurred out on television.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's long gone out the window now. NYPD Blue, Dennis Franz in the early 90s was, I think, the first butt that was ever unblurred, uncensored, shown on network television.
And
So,
looking at where it went from there, think about language, because I know back then, and even I would say until recently, there were words that you could not say on TV. Like there's words we don't say on here. But here's an example. I have family members that love the Real Housewives of New Jersey, which they're nuts. And whatever changed this year, this is a public television show. They're dropping the F-bomb that's unblurred, and it's F, 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 and there's the C word, and there's all kinds of other words that are nasty and filthy and raunchy, and there's nothing. It's gross, and you even feel like, why the heck are you watching this? And even they, at that point, she and her daughter were like, why were we watching this? It's trash. I said, because it's garbage. That this attitude is now shown there, and how casual people are with the F-bomb and cussing in general and being revealing. Like the no blurring I've heard of too, that they're actually taking that step further with certain programs, and that's disgusting.
That's right. It wasn't just recently on one of the major music award shows, you had simulated lesbian sex right on stage, right there for everyone to see, on national television. Gosh, I mean, just how did we, in a short look, I'm only 40 years old, which I know to some people might seem like I'm ancient, but I don't feel like I'm that old, and 20 years ago, 30 years ago does not seem like that long ago to me. And I just don't understand how so quickly the dominoes have fallen to get us to where we're at.
I agree. And this is something that I think it was our generation, because you're a millennial as well.
Unfortunately, I'm a cusper. I'm right on the edge of Gen X and millennial. I identify more with the Gen X.
I love that generation as well, because I am millennial. If I was born a few years later, I would have probably been, I think I would have been in somehow with the generation that comes after millennial, which is really bad. And the one that comes after them is a toss-up, because I've heard that some of the recent generation is really Christian conservative. Others are just very brainwashed. But millennials, you look at how the millennials went, the tail end of it, those that are in there, I would say between 35 to 24, oh my gosh, you can't even get through to them.
No, you can't. Look, excuse me, I clearly remember what it was like before the internet. I can remember what it was like to have a rotary dial phone and a television that I had to get up to change the channels.
I remember the dial one that my grandparents had, and they'd be like, "That's not a toy. It's not a toy." I had to go there and play with it. Or the rotary.
I remember before we had the flat screen TVs and all that. But the things that are on our televisions now, you used to have to pay for that. It's crazy.
You had to go to the movie store. And this is so.
You know what? That's actually you saying that brings up a great point. There was a time that if you wanted to see that, you actually had to go to a place in front of another human being and hand in your video cassette that you wanted to purchase, or your magazine, or pay for your ticket at the theater or whatever. They've totally eliminated, because look, at that point, look, I remember being a teenager and going to the convenience store and buying a dirty magazine. There was a shame, like it's like, just let's get this over with so I can get home. You know,
take the
now
magazine and hide it with like the sports thing and the fishing thing. You would do it discreetly. You wouldn't go out there holding out the magazine for the world to see. You know, hey, look what I've got. I've got Playboy. No, there was a respect. There was a shame that, okay, you knew that it was like naughty, and here you're like being discreet about it. You're not saying, shouting it out, screaming it. You're not reading articles. I guarantee, and this is going to sound pretty darn sad to say, that the Playboy magazines in the early 2000s would be the stuff that's on TV now. That would nowhere be as raunchy as that. So I thought it was bad back then in that magazine. What we're seeing on TV is probably worse.
I think so. Now it's just flaunted right there in your face for everyone to see.
And the books, I mean, some of these books, to put this in context, the books that are what do you call it, that are in stores, not stores, schools, you cannot read the content at most school board meetings. If you do, you're going to be police escorted out. Those books, if you take pictures of what is in those books and put them on social media, it counts as porn. Why is it allowed in schools? That stuff is sometimes worse than those, quote, dirty magazines or swimsuit magazines. And now the swimsuit magazines that are for men now include men that are dressed as women because they started doing the trans stuff.
Let me find a garbage can to throw up in. I mean, seriously, it's...
You turn the wrong page and they get the scare of a lifetime. I mean, really?
Man, oh man. You know, so it's seriously disgusting. Let's see. We'll read what Zach's got here. I'm 39, turning 40 in February. We have lost a lot of cultural cohesion and cultural trust in the last 30 years for sure. Bars on windows, items behind glass at retail stores, etc. We should be locking up criminals, not the things they are trying to steal.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about, like, here's an example of this, because New Jersey has become like that. There are places in New Jersey. Here's one example, a Walmart. The Walmart was in an area that was 10 years ago, otherwise fine, average. A lot of families were from Europe. They knew communism. They came from Eastern Europe, and they escaped that to come here, live a better life. And they either died, went to Europe, or went to Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, what the nonsense we're seeing happening now and the influx of crime wave started hitting Walmart. So now a lot of the stuff there is locked up. I heard of somebody walking into Walmart. They were in there for maybe an hour, roughly an hour, shopping. They went out to find out that their tires been removed and then concrete bricks were under them.
Well, and this is kind of also going into why you are seeing a lot of your big chains, and I can't remember all of them that have done it, but I know Best Buy started to do it a few years ago, where they were closing down a lot of their brick and mortar locations, and they would keep a few of their bigger stores open as kind of like showcase stores for the people who absolutely have to go and see and touch and feel what they're buying. But otherwise, they just would rather you purchase it online.
And and I understand the rationale, and it's sad that our society has come to that. The only reason that, because I loved vintage video games and all that, some of the problems with especially Pokemon, because Pokemon, there is an entire, I didn't know this, a black market for what they call modded or something. It's called a repro, which is basically a knockoff version of the real game, because the market for it is so huge. Games that you might have had, like, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, if you only had Pearl, didn't get Diamond, one of the other games is going to be thousands of dollars or a few hundred. It'll cost you a pretty penny, worth a fortune. And because Nintendo, the handheld, I could bring my handheld to work and during my lunch break, just relax by playing some mindless video games. You could download the older games on there. The problem is that Nintendo shut their store down. So to my point, GameStop did the same thing. A lot of their stores closed because of grab and run, because of all that. That, even though that some of their games that were either not behind the desk or were in the thing, they still had value. So you never see shops like that anymore. Best Buy, same problem. And that I like to, whether it's a video game or something else, I sometimes want to see the item because, is the chair the right size? Is the table the right size? What about the computer? I have to touch it, feel it. Can I type on it good and all that? If I just buy it online, how does the refund policy work? It's a nightmare.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. By the way, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Starla in Kentucky, who's watching us, I believe, maybe on YouTube. I'm not sure. But she
Starla!
just sent me a text message and said she's watching.
Great to see you, Starla. Oh, Corey is back, but frozen. I think Corey was having tech issues.
I think the Yankees are trying to block the signal.
Oh, man.
There he is. He's back.
Yeah, my internet interrupted.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that pillow. Halloween pillow.
Oh, that's not a pillow. That's a blanket.
Oh.
However, this is a pillow.
Oh. Speaking of the theft. Oh, I love that.
Hey, you don't even have to swap out for Christmas time. You can just keep that one out for a while.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
My childhood best friend is getting married in 2 weeks, and she is having a Nightmare Before themed Christmas wedding, and it's going to be incredible.
That's awesome.
Like they're doing it, church and all that, but after the church, like the after party,
The reception, yeah.
reception. Yep. And that was interesting to see too, because people that I grew up with, very few of them, and it's sad to admit this, are sane. I am blessed to have 3 good friends and only one childhood friend who I'm going to keep nameless for confidentiality reasons, but she is studious and all this, and you never find that. I'm like, how the heck did we end up so normal? Because hey, we all have our quirks. Everyone does. I was a major geek. I had a rock star phase growing up, but we ended up more or less fine. Both God-fearing Christians, both regular. We went through our own existential crises. And I remember chatting with her, and I said something like, could you just imagine what would happen, if our parents just encouraged us to be even more like crazier than we were? And she goes, oh my gosh, the problem is that today's parents don't know how to say no, or they're just as bad for encouraging this. There's a parody video, and I probably can't say too much about it for risk of getting censored, but it's on YouTube. And the mom was like setting up her house a certain way to encourage her son to pick up a certain kind of lifestyle. And he's like, Mom, are you trying to tell me something? She goes, no, I'm just saying it's okay if you want to express yourself. And then at the end, the mom goes, I really wanted a daughter. That's really what's happened. And it's sad to say that has happened before. Stuff like that.
Another thing too is, the stuff that's being done now, that's being pushed onto our kids and our public schools now. This has been going on for a long time in the entertainment industry, in Hollywood. There was a documentary a few years ago about Carrie Fisher and her mother. Carrie Fisher being Princess Leia from Star Wars, her mother being Debbie Reynolds, another famous actress. And in the film, and look, this was authorized by the family, and it was them talking. It's not hearsay. And Carrie Fisher's on there talking about how when she was 12, 13, 14 years old, her mother was having these sex parties at the house. And, when she was like 14, 15 years old, she was encouraged to go up and learn about sex hands-on. I mean, and so that's where all this is sort of stemming from. It goes even back that far into the 60s and the 70s in Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely. And you think all these corruptions that happened, and take a look at, like, Disney's notorious for it. There's an island in New York, and I forgot the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but he was a former child star from Disney. Well, he ended up dying of an addiction, and he was buried in the island. Well, what is addiction? Underneath addiction is emotion and trauma, usually. And people using to escape uncomfortable experiences and all that. Disney is ridden with that. Kim Richards, she was a well-known child actress who just had tons of struggles and all that. She was on one of them housewife shows. And that's another example that they've been victimized and that nobody spoke up on their behalf, and it only got worse and worse. And now you see where Disney has gone. Disney, which is no longer the innocent Mickey Mouse or all that, it is now pushing agendas on there. Satanism. They had one show on Satan doing something. There was another show that I remember growing up. It was one of the, it might have been Hey Jesse, because I only knew Disney up until like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and then that was it because I stopped watching it. But one of the programs showed an underage same-sex kiss. It was disgusting. Like, in general, there should be no PDA underage, period. I don't care if it's straight, gay, or whatnot. But the fact that they were showing this and no, you don't do that in Disney. And Disney was just promoting it to no end. And now I remember, early Disney, it was about like Saturday morning cartoons, mindless cartoons, fun stuff, nothing too over the top. Now you have to watch all of these cartoon episodes to see what your kids will be exposed to, or families for that matter.
Yeah,
and it's not just.
Yeah. Like I grew up on a variety of different phases of Disney, the classics from the 40s and the 50s, even the dark era from the 80s, like Black Cauldron. And I grew up on a myriad of different phases of Disney, and it was just childhood innocence, triumph of good over evil, and a good chunk of it is just allegory,
Absolutely.
Like
and it's not even just our cartoons anymore. Sorry, I was going to say, it's not even just our cartoons anymore. It's shows for little children. I mean, like preschool and younger. There's the YouTube channels. Miss Rachel is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very, very popular thing for kids who are very, very little. I have a 3-year-old grandniece, and about 1.5 years ago, we were watching her, and her mom puts on Miss Rachel for her, and it seemed okay for a little while. But then Miss Rachel had this friend or something on there, and you're looking at this person, and it's like, okay, is this a male or is this a female? It's a little difficult to tell. And then you find out that this person is transgendering, and Miss Rachel comes out in support of LGBTQ+. And it's like, okay, that's it. Got to cut Miss Rachel off. No more Miss Rachel.
Yeah.
It's not wholesome anymore.
And don't forget, and don't you remember about that Blue's Clues episode?
I was about to say
queen,
the Pride Parade.
Drag queen and the Pride Parade and the singing of it. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever noticed that they took down the comment section of that video and the thumbs down portion, because people were just ripping it bad. And
y'all want to hear something crazy on that? So we had a town council where we would flag, and then the town council was all Republican, and we would do flaggings or our Confederate battle flags, national flags, and hand stuff out and educate. And while we were doing this, one of the council members walked up and is hounding us out, screaming at us, saying we're making his town look bad, this and that. And I'm saying, how are we making them look bad? We're well-spoken. We don't cuss. We're family-friendly. Everyone's welcome to join. We had snacks we were giving out while giving out pamphlets on our flags, our generals, our heritage. And instead of talking like a human being, he comes up, socks raised up to his knees, like he was getting done golfing. And I responded to him by saying, well, what about the Pride Parade that y'all authorized and doing all pride flags everywhere? He went ballistic. I said, like, that's not making your town look bad. Your town is a historic town, Revolutionary War history. And then you're ignoring all that. And here you're promoting something that's not at all related to your town.
Yeah, the Confederate flags and history and honoring American heroes, boy, that's absolutely that's disturbing. That's banned now. But gay pride parades and drag queen story hour, that's okay? Give me a break. Come on.
And I am blessed to know a lot of people in New Jersey that we are working together to take this garbage out of schools and to be affiliated with several other organizations in the state of Jersey that are saying we're taking back our town councils, taking back our school boards, and we're saying no to all this nonsense, because that should have been said a while ago. And part of where we are today, because I know the political side of it is uncomfortable, but it's necessary to talk about that. People were okay with the Republicans, just like the left, kicking out the Christianity, kicking out the true history and all that. They don't want to offend people, because what I would get is the left is, shame on you, we hate your existence, yada, yada, yada. Your history and heritage don't matter. Then you have the right going, they come in and go, I like what you're doing, but now's not the time. We can't offend people. 4 years go by.
Yep.
I like what you're doing, but we can't
Yeah.
offend people. Now's not the time. And my response is, well, when will it be the time? And that's why I said enough is enough,
Yeah.
and I did something about it, because to sit there and do nothing, that's not an option. And I
Yeah.
love this point right here. Zach says, we lost when this country shut down because of the COVID lockdowns. Just ridiculous. People seem so much less social and friendly. Church is one of the only places left where I can meet new friends that are honorable, decent, God-fearing people. I find myself getting along much more with my elders. They have so much wisdom to share, and they deserve more respect in today's society. And Zach says, something is serious wrong with kids that are indoctrinated with this gender fluidity nonsense when their brains aren't even fully developed. There is a reason we don't let kids get tattooed, drink alcohol, or smoke, yet they can decide to permanently change their body. Shameful. And to add to your point, Zach, this
Yes.
will really blow your mind. New Jersey is so lenient now on the marijuana and all that, where I am against all that stuff personally, for my own reasons, doing the research. And number one, the smell of it is disgusting. It makes me nauseous. You can smell it through your car with some of the stores a mile or two away. It's that yucky. There are children that will use it. So I'll never forget, in the school system, we would have students that would have medical marijuana. That, granted, they couldn't light one up on the school bus or anything like that, but they were using it at school. We couldn't prove it. They would come to class with the munchies, and they would try to order DoorDash and get the DoorDash delivered. And we're like, you can't do that.
I never could understand how people would get the munchies. I could never get it. Like, from
Maybe
the
it's
act of
maybe it's after you get so high that you barf from the smell, and then you get so high and it's like, well, I've emptied the contents of my stomach, so now I got to eat a bunch.
Yeah, the nauseousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we actually got rid of a bill that was being proposed here in Arkansas that involved medical marijuana, but the way they wrote it was just wishy-washy, and my red flags were coming up, and I'm like, no, heck no. I probably voted no so many times this election that I probably voted yes on one thing, which was shocking. Because they tried to, my county tried to do another millage tax on the ballot. And that's another thing with public schools that I constantly I harp out, because they're constantly asking for more tax money. And I'm like, where is this money going? Where is it going? It seems like every election season they want more money.
Yeah, we had one of those on our town for the election as well, but it was a renewal, not a raise. I figure if it's a renewal, at least that if we can at least hold the line, we're okay. If we vote no and then they come back at the next election and they say, well, we're going to do something new, and it's going to be more. So.
Yeah, because I constantly wonder where this money is being spent at, and if it's been spent at all, why aren't they using what was left over? Why do they? Yeah.
Yeah, when is the last time anybody can remember seeing anything about a millage on their election ballot that wants to reduce the amount that's being spent? When's the last time we ever saw that on an election bill?
Never. Not in Jersey. I can't say. In New Jersey, we only like to up. So what they'll do in New Jersey is they will inflate, and then maybe after enough people complain, they'll say, okay, we're going to give you like maybe $2 more that you'll make income-wise. And then, okay, you think you're making more? Oh, we're going to inflate again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous. That's kind of why I'm definitely a proponent of get rid of the Federal Department of Education that President Carter brought in the 70s. Just give education back to the individual state.
Absolutely. We need that desperately, because when we started federalizing education, it led to so many issues. And you see how that, like with Common Core, for example, and all that nonsense, that all these schools have to be doing this and that. And the more federal control we give in education, the worse.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like what's going on in Baltimore, Maryland. These kids are not reading or doing math at grade level, and they're still passing.
So, yep, what they're doing there is the grade inflation, which is something that I wrote a lengthy thing about because my major included education as part of my PhD, and that was my specialty, and applying psych to it, and grade inflation and academic value of a degree. So back in the day, like not even that long ago, around 2005, if you had a 2-year degree or even a certificate, that got you somewhere because that held value. Yeah. And what happened now is the 2-year degree is pretty much just like a high school diploma. Your 4-year degree is like a 2-year degree. Your master's is the equivalent of a 4-year degree, and your PhD is the equivalent of a master's. And if you get a postdoctoral master's, that's really treated as like a true PhD. It's always like one step behind because I remember back a few years ago, if you had a 4-year degree in psych or something, you could actually work, see clients under supervision, do all that. They changed all that. Teaching, if you had a 4-year degree in teaching, you could do stuff as a full-time teacher. Then they changed it to you needed a master's degree, and they changed that 5 more times. It was all about dollars, all about promoting something, little about the actual learning. And by doing all this nonsense, we've sacrificed quality education and being able to actually learn. I feel, at least.
Yeah. Back in those days, a degree actually meant something.
It was meaningful, and you truly earned it. Even in colleges now, you know what they have now? I mean, you look at these ChatGPT programs where a lot of professors know it. So you have professors that will try to fight it by saying, okay, what I want you to do is make a PowerPoint, record yourself now, because you can do that, giving the PowerPoint. And then by doing that, you show that you did your research, you can talk about this, and you learn your presenting skills. There's students that will say, my camera broke, just casually. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I have an IEP against that. Oh, yada, yada, yada. Versus writing a paper. We have students that, just like Maryland, the system passes them when they should actually fail because they need help. They need help. Failure teaches you something. Failure and shame, to John's point, it's the shame, they teach us to change behavior. Humans change behavior when we are uncomfortable. Whether we feel something when we fail, we try harder next time. When we feel shame because we did something wrong, that shame teaches us that is not appropriate. We don't do that. And it's a horrible feeling, but guess what? It's an important emotion that people need to learn. Mm-hmm. And another problem too is, if you have a parent that's used, because shame can be integrated appropriately in education and in parenting. The problem though nowadays is if a teacher uses any kind of appropriate level shaming, for example, saying, that's really immature. You're not acting your age. That would become that teacher's harassing a student. That teacher would be fired. They would have to probably go to a training program. If a parent, tried to shame, here's an example. I had a professor, we're talking about like tantrums, and she says, if any of y'all ever become parents and you want to stop a tantrum, all y'all got to do is this. Say, hey, everyone, look, they're still having a tantrum and everyone's looking. Knocks it right out of the park because they feel embarrassed. Yeah. And they say, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. I'm acting. Or the parent will have a tantrum and then they'll stop. There's a lot of professionals now that will shame parents for trying to do the job. And this is another point too, Dr. Sullivan. I love this. Administrators want us to get students to use ChatGPT to complete assignments. I love this because this is the nonsense that's occurring. I've had professors tell us on the down low, oh, use it, do it. Why? I'm not going to learn anything. I'm not going to learn critical thinking skills. Yeah. ChatGPT can make mistakes, y'all. It can word things inappropriately. It can hallucinate. It'll give you an article that doesn't exist. I've had that happen before when I was testing it. And then you'll have professors that will say that, hey, we can check for it. There's no known program, to my knowledge, that can detect when AI is used. That's right. No focus on plagiarism. No mention of critical thinking skills or thinking for oneself. Being able to do your own research, being able to formulate an argument, being able to support with evidence-based practice, and being able to grow as a student. Because I'll be honest with y'all, when I started my college journey, I was average at best. I was B in a few C's in there that I'm not proud of, but hey, you learn. I had to teach myself how to be a better writer. My writing skills weren't up to par. Well, guess what? I learned. And one of those things where, I had one professor who I asked her, I said, what could I do better? How could I help? And she took the time and she goes, I'm glad that you asked. She would even have study sessions it was basic English comp. And it was all stuff that we learned how to be good writers, basic composition. She would host an after hours thing. And it was only maybe 3 people. And the same 3 people, we would go there and she would teach us how to be better writers. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today, being able to write a prospectus, being able to do a dissertation. It's just busy work. And you get better each time you practice. What we have done as, educators is teach our students not to care anymore. Dr. Sullivan says, Vinny, my kids had one tantrum. I said, Laura had one too. They never had another. Dr. Sullivan, next time we meet in person, you gotta reenact the tantrum, because I can't imagine you throwing a tantrum.
Man, could you imagine embarrassing your kid that way?
It works. Well, all you got to do, to John's
did.
point, the shame, you do it once and they are so embarrassed, they will never do it again.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember having my pants pulled down in public and get spanked. So, and you don't have to get spanked hard when you're in public and they pull your pants down. I mean, they can just barely tap you, and you're so embarrassed by that.
That's right.
Yes.
You don't have to beat them to death, but just show them, hey, there's consequences here.
Yeah. You don't have to go Grandpa Robert from Boondocks to get your point across.
With the belt.
Yeah, give that mom the belt and teach them how to swat your kid at the supermarket.
But there was an article that I read the other day that is, I mean, it just goes into what we've been talking about. You've got all these kids who have never been pushed to do better. They've been told to satisfy for having their assignments completed by ChatGPT. They've never been disciplined. They've never had to feel shame or loss. And then you have the article that I was reading the other day. Ivy League students offered crayons, Legos, and cookies with milk to cope with Trump's election win. Harvard University gives students the day off. Princeton professor emails students to postpone exams. Georgetown University builds self-care suite for stressed students. Wow.
Right here, yep, the Daily Mail. Ivy League students offer crayons.
It makes you think, are these college students or are these pre-kindergarten kids?
When I read about it, I said, these are not institutions of higher learning. These are overpriced institutions for adult daycare. I mean,
adult babies, yeah.
They are adult babies. That's right.
Yeah, that puts the nail right on the head. Because I mean,
these are individuals that clearly failed at Freud's first 2 stages of life, and they feel the need to be adult babies or children. This is exact. Now, I always love when you teach like Freudian psychology in the Intro to Psych course. Teaching that, you always have to say, okay, it's not literal, but sadly, in this case, it seems like that's the case. That they don't know how to be an adult. They even call it adulting. That was the article there. Yeah, they have lost it. Isn't that crazy? And
yeah,
we had, I think it was my school did.
I hope
they
George
called
Mason
it the Zen
University
room.
did not do this. Yeah.
And by the way, this is what our tax dollars through the student paying off all the student loans. This is what we're going to wind up paying for.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing. I don't think they even behave like that in the People's Republic of China, and
we're the laughing stock of the entire world.
We are, and we are the laughing stock of the world. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Well, if you notice, I mean, if you read about it though, in China, they don't allow children to watch the things that we allow children to watch. They don't
Yeah.
allow children to see the things and experience the things that children are being pushed and having pushed on and exposed to them in classrooms here. No, they teach kids how to be able to deal with the real world, how to be hard, how to be tough.
Yeah,
and they do teach shame too. That's a big thing with usually parenting styles and teaching, even in Asia, is that you brought dishonor, you brought disgrace on our family. Those are powerful words that have lost meaning here. Like you would feel that. It would be like, ouch, oh my gosh. And
yes,
like that whole
it's a system of your actions and your behavior is a reflection on your family.
That's right.
And it's what our young people are doing right now is character unbecoming. Because if I did some of the stuff that they're doing back when I was in college, I didn't have to worry about my parents being embarrassed. I would have to deal with the embarrassment on both sets of my parents, my dad and stepmother, mom and stepfather, and beyond. Because we all have that cousin or aunt that won't they'll do more than just would happily go to the point of calling you by your first, middle, and last. And give you a good bump on the head.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have never in my college experience ever had a professor that like was as crazy as some of these are by either telling us to cheat, to use plagiarism, to use ChatGPT, which didn't even exist back then. I did have one professor that she was a great psychology professor, and a lot of her methods I have adopted to my syllabus. I wrote several syllabi, for intro to psych or abnormal. And my thing is this, right? Is that I structure the course in that, if it's taught 2 days a week, so like one course split up, or if it's all in one, we do a small break of 2 to 3 minutes just to kind of refresh and go back to the lecture. I write all the stuff on the board. We have a great discussion about each topic because it's intro to psychology is broad. It's a lot that goes in intro to psychology. There's a little bit of writing. One of the assignments is a take-home quiz where they have to use the book and, justify their answers. So that's one of the assignments I have in there. The other thing I do for exams is because the exams are really great, I allow half a page index card front and back. You can write notes that you feel are going to be on there. So for example, classical conditioning, there's a lot to learn. And the reason is they can put it on there and check, okay, did I study correctly? Did the questions match up with any of these that, my small little guide right there? And you'd be surprised. We still have students that will do that and they do terrible on the test. And those that don't use it, they do well. So that's my little method there that I do allow a little bit of that within reason. I don't do any open book, any of that. If the course is online, there's certain things you can do to make sure the test is not being abused by the textbook. One of them is making it so that the test, instead of having all the answers, they have to answer one and it's timed. And then they have to move on to the next one. When they move on to the next question, that answer is already submitted. They can't go back there and change it. So those are the things that you can do to curb all that nonsense and also to put more emphasis on the grade on the discussion online, as well as to do your writing and do all that. But for your reply in lieu of doing a written thing, put your references in there, but then go on there and do a video reply for 3 to 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, no less than 3. Do a little synopsis of the reply, and that teaches your public speaking skills. And that's how you do learning online. And sadly, you don't always see that in a lot of the institutions. Oh yeah, well, Dr. Sullivan, I think I know. Was it Chegg Study? Because I know Chegg does that, and there's another one where you know how they get on there? How they get on there is you either have a student that's smart enough to take all the answers and write it, or the textbook company that makes the tests will usually sell like a USB port. So students can actually buy the USB and buy the test answers on eBay or textbooks.com. And through that diversion process, they put all the answers up online to make money. I've seen that done too.
Yeah.
And what you do, another way to curb that is purposely structure your tests to have 3 questions that come from the test bank and make sure that they're scored incorrectly. So after the students score it, you realize, okay, if you're noticing patterns here that people are getting the same answers right, same answers wrong, if it's an online course, they're more than likely cheating. And then what you do is you say, okay, y'all, I gave credit back, and the ones that were incorrect were really right. I've seen professors do that, but it's very difficult. It's a huge issue in academia, and it's not going to be one that we're going to find resolution to, I don't think. Yeah, Chegg study. And it's pretty much just cheating is all it is. And they do it for, my friend told me this because she had a really rough year one year. She would teach sociology and criminal justice, and she had nursing students. She had one student that plagiarized so severely. And then her response was, well, I'm not going to use this in nursing. And the lady goes, doesn't matter. It matters that, how you do something is how you do everything. If you cheat in this course, what's not to say you're going to cheat in a nursing course or cheat in the field? And then at that point, you can harm someone. That's where I love discussions, because with discussions, you all give something, you all participate, and you actually learn more, I feel. Because whatever clinical experience I have, maybe I can answer a question that way and say, I don't know, Bob. I had client X. Client X had this particular disorder, and I saw it was this, but the book says this. Or they might say, hey, I found an article by Smith et al., and it said that, the treatment of depression is great with CBT only versus meds. That's how you foster critical thinking skills. And I agree with that too.
Yeah, I prefer that as well, because you get people discussing from various sources. Like one of my favorite things to discuss with people is from different authors, such as, most people don't believe me when I say, there were a significant other amount of red Republicans during the war. And one of the books I cite is Lincoln's Marxists by the Kennedys.
That's right.
Which, by the way, is probably a banned book by the current.
Can you imagine making a donation to the library? Oh man!
Oh, okay, we're no book banning. Okay, I got a whole lot of books to give you. I'm gonna give you the full Kennedy library.
Oh, yeah. There's this. I wonder if they would consider this a banned book. Jefferson Davis by the Kennedy brothers, or
The Real Lincoln by Tom DiLorenzo.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Marco Bassani has good books too.
And Guzman has some pretty good books as well. Kevin Guzman.
Yes, yep. Brian McClanahan.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can find. And I'll give you all the link again in the chat, because I know sometimes we get new viewers and they want to know where can we get good books and all this. And my buddy Matt at the Confederate shop. I was not home on Halloween, so I had my mom that was there giving out candy, and pretty much we only on a good year, we are lucky if we have even one trick or treater. We just don't have them anymore.
I didn't get any this year.
A lot of people aged out, they moved. So every year I'd give out candy, and I'd usually leave it out. And if they rang the doorbell, they'd get a Confederate sticker. So I'd give, pick which one you want, first, second, third. At which point, if it was only one trick or treater, take several of them, hand them out to friends, put them on your laptop, do something. But, here's a great historical sticker and a great website.
Yeah. I need to get my hands on that textbook he's selling.
Oh, it's the War Between the States. That and the study guide. The bundle is really good.
Yeah, I heard that they were doing a bundle,
because they got a lot of good stuff on their website.
Do they have Tyler's Confederate Catechism on there? That's another good one.
Yeah,
you won't find that. You won't find that one in the school library.
Nope.
And they also have one of Mildred Lewis Rutherford, Truths of History, another one that you'll never find. Because Miss Mildred, she was such an amazing lady that she knew how to ask the questions that were tough. She was not afraid to do research. She was not afraid to ask questions. My good friend we were chatting at one convention one time, and he asked me, he goes, "What books do you think I should read?" And I said, "Truths of History" by Mildred Lewis Rutherford. And a very nice lady I know, Miss Suzanne, she does a great presentation on Mrs. Rutherford, and she looks just like Mrs. Rutherford, and she has the portrait. It was incredible. So I was blessed for Halloween. I was able to spend it with my UDC friends, and their building had a beautiful Halloween show, and it was so well done to bring history to life and is inspiring. It was something that I wanted to bring back here and, maybe do it for an event, for a Halloween social or something, have some of my flaggers dress up as people throughout the war between the states, bring their stories to life, read their essays, read their poetry, brief little programs, no longer than like under 10 minutes, brief programs, and rotate them. That would be something that would be so beneficial, I feel.
We need
It is the Confederate Shop, Dr. Sullivan.
We need the script for the Lincoln trial, dude, that they did at Reunion.
We got to get that from Arkansas. I got to ask Loy. Loy might have that.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Miss Millie did not back down for nothing. I'll tell you that. And you think about, right, when we talk about like Miss Rutherford is a figure that, number one, for all females in education, she is somebody that they need to look up to, because at a time when females were truly at a time when they were oppressed, she stood up against that. She did something that wasn't done. She stood up and became an educator. She was basically the president of that teacher's college. She taught other women how to be teachers, and she went into teaching when she, that was, it used to be a men's only field. And then as things changed, she was at that forefront, and she was also basically did a whole movement that we have got to make sure that our history is being taught correctly and that the material in schools is school appropriate and is proper. So what we have going on today with different parents' rights groups in New Jersey, they are pretty much doing the same thing that Mrs. Mildred Rutherford did. She went to school boards, she fought them, and she won, and she succeeded.
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan, you are going to love the Confederate Shop. Let me just say that I've known parents, I've known grandparents, aunts and uncles, that they will buy tons of stuff on there for Christmas and stocking stuffers and, oh man, all great educational books and good stuff. And Mr. Zach says the UDC building in Richmond is very nice. I'm so thankful for them. And the SCV, of course. As am I, brother. I am beyond grateful to both organizations, our SCV brothers and UDC sisters. And that memorial building is just absolutely amazing and is still going strong. And I tell people, if you are in Richmond, call the building, see if you can get a tour with Miss Teresa. And if you go there, please donate to the building. Donate as much as possible. The building is amazing. They restored it, and Miss Ginny did a fantastic job. That was who was tasked with restoring it pretty much at that point. And seeing the building was just so inspiring. And hearing from the stories of the women of the South was empowering.
Another one that's good. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Vinny.
You're all good.
No, another one that's good is, and I mentioned him already, Brian McClanahan. He also has McClanahan Academy.
Yes.
Online courses. They're pretty much college level courses.
Yes, they are.
And he's got some excellent stuff. I've done the one on the war between the states, secession and American tradition. And those courses, yes, they're a little bit pricey, but if you follow him, listen to his radio program, sign up for his emails, he gives discounts on the courses all year long at different points in the year. And I think right now, I think they still have a 40% discount on most, if not all, courses.
Yeah, he has a Black Friday sale right now for his courses.
That's right.
And at the end of every class, he gives you a reading list. So he'll tell you what books you need to buy and read for yourself to find what he's teaching. But you're going to get so much more than just even more than he teaches by reading the entire book for yourself.
Yeah. You know what? I wish we could get him on a show, on an episode sometime. And another good author and scholar is Dr. Don Livingston.
Absolutely. Well, he's the one that trained Brian McClanahan. He was McClanahan's mentor.
I thought his mentor was Dr. Wilson, Clyde Wilson.
Oh, that's right. It was Dr. Clyde Wilson. Livingston was the one who was in charge of the Abbeville Institute, which now Brian McClanahan is in charge of. That's right.
Yes.
And that's the McClanahan Academy.
Yeah, I'm currently reading I actually finished one of. I finished one book by Brian McClanahan. It was 9 Presidents That Screwed Up America and 4 That Tried to Save Her. And right now I'm reading Clyde Wilson's book on John C. Calhoun.
Nice.
Yeah, and I never realized how big of a constitutional absolutist John C. Calhoun was. I mean, textbooks grievously misrepresent him, and especially their choice of portrait that they use of him. Because I mean, when you think
conservatives today don't even want to talk about John C. Calhoun, because everyone that talks about him only focuses on one thing, the same one thing that they always focus on when they talk about the war between the states: slavery. They don't want to admit that it's much bigger, much more involved and nuanced than just that.
Speech. They always want to go to his positive good speech.
Yep.
And they seem to forget too that during his time, it was probably the epitome of the American triumvirate. You had Henry Clay, you had Daniel Webster, you had John C. Calhoun, and just like Dr. McClanahan said, both sides of the political aisle loved Calhoun in his time. I mean, at his death, Daniel Webster read his eulogy, and he was a rival.
Yep.
And the only person the one person nobody really got along with was the irascible John Quincy Adams. Yeah. But yeah, probably I tried reading Calhoun's Disquisition on Government, and I gotta tell you, you need to read it multiple times just to grasp what he's telling you.
Oh, reading any of those guys from that era, and a lot of the guys from the War Between the States era, it's like trying to read Jefferson Davis and Raphael Semmes. Their way of thinking, their way of speaking through their words and their writing is just, it's something that we're not used to. We're used to consuming such tiny little bits of easy information.
Yes.
And one thing for sure is if you can get into stuff like that and start reading stuff like that, you're going to open your mind up. You're gonna have a bigger brain than most everybody else in your class.
Yeah.
Yes, you will. Rose Greenhow was like that too.
Yeah, I'm
very
hoping.
forward thinking.
Yeah, I'm hoping for when I become a history teacher for high school, is that I want to bring in snippets of these speeches and host discussions with my students to actually get them gauged. Because when I was in 5th grade, I had this really awesome social studies teacher who practically made history come alive.
That's rare.
She would actually wear the clothing, like some of the stuff that she brought from Ren Fair, if we were reading something out of the Renaissance, or she would bring out movie tapes from such as Johnny Tremaine, Sergeant York. Oh yes, and even have us memorize and reenact the Patrick Henry speech, the "Give me liberty and give me death" speech.
That's awesome.
Yes, she was an amazing teacher, and that's somebody that I hope to aspire to for my own class. And hopefully, if I can afford to do these classes by Dr. McClanahan every chance I get, maybe bring out a chapter or two from these said books, and because we need to gauge these students on their culture and their history. Because, I mean, although the only thing they'll ever get to is slavery, secession, nullification, and treason.
That's right.
And I just
Well,
want
if
to
they
go.
get beyond, most of them won't go beyond slavery.
Oh yeah, that's really the one thing they hammer home. And the textbooks, the way they're written now, with Pearson being the worst and the most used, it always goes into now the gender stuff. So now they'll talk about gender stuff back then, and then shame the founding fathers because they're not gender progressives. And then they'll say, okay, racist, this and that, yada yada yada. And then USA history too is even more of that. Like they drive it home so bad, and then they end the book talking about all, quote, the positives of Obama, which you can clearly tell where the textbook stands politically, which is never supposed to be.
Oh, I know. I got into it with somebody on TikTok who does the ratings of the presidents from S all the way down to F. And I openly said to him that I would put my cousin James Madison at A tier and John Tyler at S tier, and I would put Barack Obama and Andrew Jackson and then of course the Roosevelt cousins at the very bottom. And they just go, what? Why? And I'm like, well, I'll give you a list. Bypassing the Constitution, disregarding the Constitution. Presidentism is an absolute scourge on someone's ability to learn and understand history. Oh, it's a problem, not just in the academic profession. It's a problem everywhere. Mm-hmm. They bring in present day thinking into the books, the sources.
And that's something that needs to be taught, like, because I think now is a good time to try to wrap up. But something that should definitely be taught in the school system, definitely at the teachers' convention, would be avoiding presentism in teachings to ensure that you are truly being unbiased. Because if you are taking present day values and imposing it on the past, something that was normal back then is not considered racist. That drives me bad when they say, oh, that's racist. They were racist. They were white supremacists, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, 21st century thinking to something that was normal at the time. No.
Yeah. And if they want to talk about who's pointing the finger at who's racist, which section of the continental U.S. had black codes and was very awful to the Jewish population?
North.
Yeah.
And look at California. California had the Indian Slave Act that it had to be repealed multiple times before it was finally removed. But California allowed slavery of the Pacific Northwest Indians.
Yeah, and let's not forget the anti-Chinese leagues that they had out in the West and the Western.
Oh, yeah. All right, gentlemen. Since we're in the process of wrapping up, I figured we would honor Captain Henry Wirz. That is, I'm saying that right? Wirz?
I think it's Wirz.
Wirz. Because I know there's several different pronunciations, but Henry Wirz was illegally tried, illegally executed, and still had gotten no justice, no nothing. So I figured we'd end it honoring him.
Especially on Veterans Day.
Yep.
One of the most. I got to go to Henry Wirz's grave about a year and a half ago, and a couple years before that, I wrote a piece about Captain Wirz, and just learning about him and the injustice that was done upon him. Excuse me. Getting to go and pay my respects at that man's grave was so moving for me. I honestly can think of very few who have been treated worse by the United States government than Wirz, and I say hats off and honor to his memory.
Yeah, I do too.
That's right. Oh, thank you for that, Dr. Sullivan. I will have to do that. At some
Yeah, I'll
point, I
have
do
to
want to
do
do
that.
an episode on him because there's a lot to talk about him in his trial.
Yeah.
And that's right. His bones are on display in the Maryland Museum. And I always love
Disgusting.
medical oddities, like, because it's interesting when you see that. And I think it's more of a reminder of how low the Yankees sunk with, taking stuff from our loved ones.
Yeah. Talk about ghouls. Just taking his bones and putting it on display. That's exactly what Yankees are. They were ghouls then. They're still ghouls now.
That's right. Something that I absolutely would have done if they ever had a display like that, I'd make a little note telling the true history, number one, and also because it's so shocking and that shock value could be used for education, saying this is what the Yankees did to your ancestors.
Yeah.
And let it be a reminder. I know the SCV Museum has the casket remains of General Forrest, and that is very powerful too. Like that is what it came down to, digging up graves.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Oh.
His nephew died last December. He wanted to live to see him pardoned. So posthumously have him pardoned, and it's sad enough that they refused to do that.
Yeah.
We should add that onto the list of things to petition to President Trump.
To
That's right.
posthumously have him pardoned.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, that's we need to send like we need to send a laundry list to Trump of what we want to see done. Have the Reconciliation Monument cleaned and restored with a big apology attached to it, and on top of that posthumous pardon, and after that a long list of restorations of our monuments and plaques. I don't know if he'd have authority to restore Monuments Avenue, but that would be nice.
Yeah, it would.
I don't think he would have the power to do that, but you're right. It would be very nice.
I mean, maybe his attorney general could put pressure on Richmond for restitution for the damages.
No federal funding for anything in the state of Virginia until Monument Avenue is restored.
And not just the restoration of Monument Avenue, just the restitution to the United Daughters for them torching the building, and
Yep.
and hopefully bringing LeVar Stoney up on charges of dereliction of duty, and I don't know what the charge would be, just letting your city burn. Oh, dereliction of duty and obstruction.
Vicarious liability, the failure to act when he knew that there was imminent danger and he told the police, paramedics, all of them to stand down. I mean, people could have had a heart attack and all that, and that he would have been liable for that. I know for a fact that there were people that were very hurt, probably died during those riots for sure. He was behind a lot of that. So I love that idea too, the restitution for the building, because that building was a museum set on fire. They are well owed something by the government as well as Richmond.
Yeah.
Because
And
whatever, remember the whole argument, put all your flags in museums? Well, guess what? There was a historic flag in the memorial building, which is also a museum, and it was set on fire and torched.
yeah, and it's gone forever.
Yep. You can never replace that no matter how hard you try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, anything else for the good of the order?
Well, stay unreconstructed, stay Southern, and Deo Vindice.
I agree, Dr. Sullivan. Can't stand Stoney. Wouldn't be surprised if he didn't encourage his friends to destroy things. Because, yes, Stoney is from New York. And there were a lot of people that were from out of state that were driving around trying to find our monuments, do all that. I had one friend that was on guard looking at one of the memorials in Virginia, and some guy with New York plates was going around, and he says, well, that memorial should come down. And she goes, get your tail out of my town. And he left, and the memorial is still there. But that was happening all over the place. And, using the time of crisis and all that to push her narrative and do that. Yeah, that's right. Because that flag, that's how delicate that artifact was. The whole frame burned to a crisp.
Yeah.
Shame.
And by the grace of the heavens, I would love to have Miss Teresa Roan come on here and talk about what it was like, because she was the one that saved a lot of the items in there. And she runs in there, and no sooner does she walk out of there, the ceiling collapses. Like, she could have been hurt, potentially killed. I mean, that was terrifying. What she had to go through, and all the brave men that defended the building during the siege, what I call the second fall of Richmond. Putting their lives on the line truly for their heritage, because people have weapons, they have Molotov cocktails. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's sad we live in that era where not even our museums are safe. Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. Well, as always, y'all stay Southern, and Deo Vindice, y'all.
Deo Vindice.